Antony Blinken, our Secretary of State, it's just black. His eyes are just black. It's just straight black. I think if you don't have a soul, that's how it looks.
Mr. Secretary, the topic of genocide has been debated during this trip. One of your first major remarks as Secretary of State was accusing Beijing of genocide. Why do you think China's treatment of the Uyghurs constitutes this crime and Israel's treatment of Palestinians does not?
Good question there, my journalist friend. Why is it that the U.S. has said China is perpetrating a genocide against Uyghurs, which are Muslim Chinese, when even in the accusations, even in the totally insane, unhinged, crazy U.S. accusations against China, there is no accusation of murdering any Uyghurs? So why is that called a genocide? But as Israel rains bombs down on women and children and innocent people, murdering and causing to be missing, which likely means dead, 37,000 people in 140 days. Why is that not genocide?
Very clear over many months and now many years about the Uyghurs, about Rohingya.
And I'll keep playing it, but I just want to break it down as we go. We've made it very clear, and that's not an answer, right? We just made it very clear. They love to use this as a stall tactic, as a bullshit tactic, as an I'm not going to answer your question tactic. They just go, we've made it very clear. Next question. And it's like, wait, you didn't answer but there was clearness. Oh, was it clear? I'm not going to make it clear for you now, but in the past, there's been so much clearness. Oh my God, it's been clear. It's like 2040 vision. Is that clearer than 2020? I don't know how those numbers work. Anyway, I have broken down before for you how ridiculous the U.S. claims of genocide by China against the Uyghurs are. But just as a little reminder, I'll just give you one article reminder. This is from Gray Zone, and they broke down the U.S. accusations. And they talk about Adrian Zenz as being one of the main voices of these reports. So the article says, both President Joe Biden and his Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, this is from a couple of years ago, have endorsed former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's last-minute accusation. Mike Pompeo under Donald Trump. So wait, you're saying that Trump and Biden and Blinken and Pompeo said the same thing? Hold on. The two parties are one party? Last-minute accusation of genocide against the Muslim Uyghur population in China's Xinjiang province. The U.S. government's accusation of genocide against China stems from a single source, a June 2020 paper by Adrian Zenz, a right-wing German researcher affiliated with the Victims of Communism Memorial Fund. If you're unfamiliar with that, folks, it's this hilarious organization which claims to count the victims of communism and basically counts anyone who ever dies anywhere in the world as a victim of communism. But they never count the victims of capitalism, which is easily in the hundreds of millions. Every time someone dies of starvation around the world, most of those are victims of capitalism. Vast majority victims of capitalism. But no, that doesn't count in the count, right? Articles by the Associated Press, CNN, BBC all relied on Zenz's article to claim that plunging Uyghur birth rates and the application of birth control measures in Uyghur counties of the Xinjiang province were proof of a policy of demographic genocide. So they're adding some qualifiers. Now, I bet you didn't know that. Genocide, you can have like a light genocide, like an easy genocide, like, they're going for, it's like, like with coffee, you got your like dark black coffee, you got your medium light coffee. It's the same with genocide. You can have your real dark genocide, your medium light, your breakfast blend genocide. I think that's what they're accusing China of here, is the breakfast blend genocide. Adrian Zenz is in fact a far-right Christian fundamentalist who has said he is, quote, led by God, unquote, against China's government, deplores homosexuality and gender equality, and has taught exclusively in evangelical theological institutions. So good guy all around. Lyle Goldstein, a China specialist and research professor of the Strategic and Operational Research Department of the Naval War College. This guy's at the Naval War College. This is not a left-wing He's not at the Lenin Trotsky College, all right? They're talking to someone who's an expert on China at the Naval War College. Goldstein says the Chinese approach to Xinjiang is, quote, is a more repressive posture than we would like, but it sure isn't genocide. And he then says it's offensive to people who lost relatives in the Holocaust. Really, it should be offensive to all of us because we should all be offended by the Holocaust. You don't have to have a relative in the Holocaust to be offended by the Holocaust. You can just go ahead and be offended by the Holocaust, which is kind of like you don't have to have a relative in Gaza to be offended by the genocide that's being perpetrated against them. See how neat that is? Neat that you don't have to say like I have a cousin who died there. You can just say I'm horrified by this. It's amazing how that works. The article then goes on and says that Zenz has used its flagrant data abuse. And they pinpoint, they're not just saying that, they show how his data, he literally changes numbers to make it somehow work for his purposes. Fraudulent claims, cherry picking of source material, and propagandistic misrepresentations. And they show a chart here of birth rates, Han and Uyghur annualized effective population growth. 1965 to 1975, Han Chinese were had way more population growth. Then Uyghurs had a slight more population growth than Han Chinese in 1975 to 1985, a little more 1985 to 1995. And then Uyghurs are again ahead in population growth 2005 to 2015. So everything he's saying about population changes is garbage, is laughable. And yet we're expected to believe it's a genocide. The only reason population growth should matter in a discussion of genocide is if they're not murdering everyone. Now, some people like to point, they're literally the Ben Shapiros and these awful human beings of the world, they like to point to the fact that there are more Palestinians alive today than there were in 1948. And there's more people in Gaza today than there were in 1948. And that's proof that there's not a genocide. Now, the population numbers don't matter when you're raining down bombs on children and saying that they're all cockroaches and that you need to turn Gaza into a parking lot. Like when you go to commit genocide, it doesn't matter what the population is. All right, let's get back to my man, Tony Blinken.
And we've laid out in some detail why we see the genocide being perpetrated. Similarly, including very recently before the International Court, we had an opportunity, and others have had an opportunity to make clear why that is simply not the case when it comes to Gaza.
He hasn't said anything. Literally, the guy said, why do you see genocide with Uyghurs and you don't see genocide with Gazans? And his response was, we laid out why we saw genocide with Uyghurs, and now at the ICJ, we laid out why we don't see genocide with Gaza. That's not an answer. You literally just repeated what he asked you, basically. Of course Gaza's genocide, and of course the Uyghurs are not. Like, it is so breathtakingly stupid. What do they think, we're children? Don't answer that question. The answer is yes. They think most Americans are children and will believe this garbage, and many Americans do.
And we've been very clear about the meritless nature of that particular charge.
We've said things that I'm not saying here. Listen, I have clearly laid out the things I'm not going to lay out. I have said very clearly exactly what it is that I don't know, because of course, Gaza's genocide. Of course, it's ethnic cleansing.
Setting that aside.
And now I'm going to set aside the thing I didn't answer.
As you know, as we've spoken extensively about, we are determined to see the conflict in Gaza end as soon as possible in a way that...
Are you? Let me ask you folks something. If there were a mass shooter and over several hours he's shooting everybody in a shopping mall and you keep delivering him more ammunition, you're like, here you go, here it is. And then you turn around, and because the news crews have come, because there's an ongoing mass shooting, news crews have come, and you turn around and you talk to the news crews and you say, I'm doing everything I can to stop this mass shooting from going on anymore. Could you excuse me for a minute? I got to deliver more ammo to this guy. Would you believe that person? Because that's what we're doing. Would anyone look at that guy who's delivering the ammo and go, that guy really wants to stop this mass shooting? He is doing everything he can to try and stop it.
Course, that October 7th can never happen again, but also that the suffering that Palestinians have endured.
Yeah, you care a lot about the suffering, don't you? Can't you just tell?
In the first instance, we're focused on getting the hostages out, getting an extended humanitarian ceasefire.
When he says hostages out, guess which hostages he means? Only the ones in Gaza. He does not mean the hostages Israel's holding, which, by the way, Israel has taken, nobody's sure of the exact number, but Israel has taken 5,000 to 10,000 more hostages since October 7th. So it was 5,000 before October 7th. Now it's probably in the range of 10 to 15,000 people that Israel has grabbed up as hostages. Many of them, again, women and children.
With regard to the post-war Gaza plan that you referred to, look, I've seen the reports that we feel are very important when it comes to Gaza's future, including that it cannot be a platform for terrorism. There
Can't be a platform for terrorism. Is Israel allowed to be a platform for terrorism? Because it certainly looks like they are. Okay, Israel apparently totally cool to be a platform for terrorism. They can have all the bombs in the world. They can rain them down whenever they see fit. They can shoot journalists. They can shoot medics. They can kidnap doctors. They can torture. They can murder children. Israel is just like a perfect platform for terrorism. That's fine. But Gaza, which is an open-air prison, that can't be a platform for what we're calling terrorism. Of course, this is the completely laughable, hypocritical definition of terrorism. When Hamas does anything, it's terrorism. When Israel does anything, it's justice, right? Israel only defends itself. Israel has a right to defend it. Everything Israel does is defending itself. Israel shot that baby, literally shot that infant to defend itself from an infant. It's the terminology is just mind-splitting. I mean, you can't listen to these sacks of human garbage without taking like 14 separate types of Tylenol. But also, he's talking about the future of Gaza. You'll notice he doesn't say like, oh, Gaza should stop being a prison. Because here's the thing, is even if Gaza tomorrow went back to exactly how it was prior to October 7th, even if Israel came in and rebuilt all the buildings and put it exactly how it was before October 7th, still a prison? Yeah, still a prison. Israel was deciding how much medicine they got in Gaza. People were dying from preventable diseases all the time in Gaza. The dirty water they were all drinking in Gaza. Not enough food in Gaza. That was the reality prior to October 7th. So when he says get back to stability, get back to security, do you at all mean get back to a better situation for Gazans, or just the same shit? The same open-air prison shit they had prior to October 7th?
should be no Israeli reoccupation of Gaza.
They say no reoccupation of Gaza, but that's acting like prior to October 7th, Israel wasn't occupying Gaza. Sure, Israeli IDF might not have been that often walking down the streets of Gaza, but it's still occupation. When Israel controls whether you go in or out, there's no flights in, there's no boats allowed in. The Gazans aren't allowed to go more than a mile out to sea in their own ocean. They just control how much water, how much food, how much medicine, how much construction materials. All of that is controlled by Israel. That's an occupation. You're occupied. If someone had me in a basement, I couldn't come or go. They decided if I got water, if I got food, if I got medicine, and every once in a while they'd come and shoot one of my friends who was down there with me, I'd say that's a prison. That's an occupation, right? Don't expect to get alerts about my stuff. I'm so suppressed that it just won't happen. So what you gotta do is just show up. Just be here. You don't get an alert to show up to work, right? And that's what this is work. You guys are at your job right now. Show up here. God damn it. I'm joking. I love you a lot, like tongue kiss love right now. So I'm sorry about getting angry like that. That was not nice.